Get the data, make action. Don't think about things more than 3 times before taking action on it. But if you have a vision that is so clear that you can sit across the table and tell somebody, like, I want my great-great-great-grandchildren to know my name.
Welcome to the Nashville Money Guys podcast. My name is Brandon McDonald. This is my buddy Josh
Hey,
Braun. We have hunted together a few times. We own some land together out in Colorado, and Josh is a very accomplished real estate investor, which is why I wanted him to come on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can you just give the people a real quick rundown of who you are and what you have done? Go into some details as far as like how many rental units, what's the max that you've owned, where you guys are kind of pushing to now. Like, this is your chance to kind of create some credibility and wow the people real quick. And I also want to know what duration, like when did you start doing it?
Yeah. So I don't like to talk about myself, Brandon, but
honestly, you don't. So yeah, I know.
So I spent 12 years in healthcare technology. Spent a lot of time kind of in my 20s working for somebody else. And I always had like this itch or this scratch inside of me ever since I was in kindergarten. So on the way to school in kindergarten, I've never told you this story, but I would stop at the gas station. My grandmother would take me. I'd stop at the gas station. I'd buy those long Jolly Ranchers. Do you remember those Jolly Rancher sticks? They used to sell them for 12 cents.
Inflation. And
I would take them to school, and I would sell them for 25 cents.
This is genius.
Yeah. And the thing was, I didn't know that was the entrepreneurial like part of me, but I just wanted money to buy stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll buy this and I'll sell that and I'll sell that.
Do you remember, I know this is so simple. Do you remember how you figured out that those margins would actually work? So I've had a few friends who have done similar things, mostly with illegal substances. But I wanted to know, like, and I've asked them the same question, is when did you realize that this might be a thing that could work? You may not remember.
I kind of do, actually. And I always like to ask questions. So in kindergarten, I asked, hey, how much would you pay for a Jolly Rancher? And it was just like, oh, I got a quarter. So next day, that's when I went and I bought, 6 or 8 of those. I came back and literally sold every single one of them. I remember that in kindergarten because that was just where I grew up at. It was kind of scrappy. You just had to figure out where you want to make money at. So that ended up going into like first grade where we had a Sam's Club that actually opened up in our small town in eastern Kentucky. So then I got big time. Grandma would take me in there, and now we would buy the big boxes of big bubble gum in like the little 5 packs. And I nailed that down to like, it was like 30 cents a pack. Now I'd make $1.25. And that was the price of lunch money at school.
Oh, so you would literally, so people would show up with $1.25 to buy lunch and they'd buy candy from you instead.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that was at the beginning. And then, through, my family always said that college was the route to go. And that was kind of where we grew up at. That was the way out of town, but that was also the way to make money. So that's all I knew in terms of support and people telling me how I was going to do in life. So I went to school, focused on getting undergrad degree, grad degree. And then here I am, 12, 13 years in my corporate career, and I'm fast forwarding here. So now I'm at the 3rd healthcare company, and it was November 2015, and we're getting bought out by a larger company. And I have to let go of a pretty good amount of people on my team, 20, 25 people. Everybody's clapping, cheering in the big town hall meeting. I'm just almost crying inside. I'm just standing there. What am I doing? Like, why am I on this path to try to continue to get my buddy's job that's ahead of me? The only upward mobility there was to take somebody else's job and push them. It felt bad. And it felt bad in my soul and my being, and I don't like losing people. And I had a really good team. I had to let them go. So I went home. That was the week of Thanksgiving. I went home to my wife. And I said, never again will we be in a spot where our family and our team's financial future is dictated by somebody else. So I spent the next 2 years of my playing double duty, starting some investment projects in Nashville. Decent timing, 2015 to 2017. Had a general contractor kind of do what general contractors typically do over time, over budget. Took 18 months to build 2 homes on Porter Creighton Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And started asking questions. Why is this happening this way? Why is this way? Why is this way? And he just didn't want to answer questions. So started doing it for myself, and then did a couple projects. Other people saw that. Hey, will you do this project for us? Will you do this? Will you do that? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. So then started getting into the Chattanooga area, some rentals, started thinking about the long-term cash flow, the long-term gain versus just turning and building some projects. So right now we've got a construction company called Suburban Cowboys. We're in Nashville.
Which is an awesome name, by the way. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Very good.
We wanted to be non-corporate, non-traditional, kind of a laughable, like, you know, we're human beings. We're not the experts by any means, but we want to have fun. We want to have a good time. And we want to attract the right people. That's the key part of building a successful team, is having the right people. So we've got a pretty good amount of portfolio across Middle Tennessee, Chattanooga. 2 years ago, started a property management. 2 years ago, sold a property management company that we started and got into. We grew that to $40 million in assets, 350 doors or so. That was one of the things that we ended up doing along the journey. Found out that it's way more management on the business side than what we were willing to do. So we ended up selling that. Now we have probably 80 doors or so across Nashville, Chattanooga. Construction's going good. We've got a really good team there. And then last year, just with some of the shifts in the economy, we started making some decisions on some other ancillary services. So opened up a roofing company, recently have pool service company, concrete company. So really moving that niche towards the home services improvement side of things, where we can navigate with the economy, still do building, still do investing, still buy rentals, focus on cash flow for the long haul, but then create some active near-term income to then reinvest into some more assets.
So I want to drill down a little bit on some of this, because you just, in the amount of time that it would take most people to get like an undergrad degree and a master's, you have built multiple multi-million-dollar companies, and you have acquired a crap ton of assets. You've run into dead ends and gotten out of those dead ends literally in an extremely short amount of time. I think that that's one of the things that when I'm listening to stuff and listening to people talk, the old timers, like the OGs that are 30 or 40 years down the road, there's so many people that are like skeptical of, well, I can't even do that now. Like, you were buying houses for $15,000. You were buying houses at, you know, whatever the historic interest rates were. But you, in a very short amount of time, in the very recent history, have been able to do a lot of stuff. And I want to find out what the thought process is for the scaling. So I want to find out what is the thing? Do you think it's something that's just like innately in you, that's driving you forward? Is it some sort of bigger goal? Like, what is the thing just overarching that has kept you tenacious, I guess we'll say?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brandon. I think there's a lot of paths in life for people. And what I've seen by hiring, firing, by growing businesses, all of the things, it's a basic principle. And that's, first, you got to have a vision. You got to understand what is it that you're working towards? What is your end goal in life? And for me, I've got a very clear vision. Like, I want my great grandchildren to remember my name. It's legacy. Like, to me, it's not about the fancy cars. It's not about, flash. It's not about bling. It's about, I want 3 generations removed from me to say, hey, that guy did something. so that's what keeps me awake at night. That's why I think about every single time I get stuck into the transactional activity of our businesses. I've got a goal. Like, I've got an obligation to a vision that I have to do something with. And I'm not going to waste time not working towards that. I spend a lot of time asking questions, a lot of time being in a room where I'm the dumbest guy. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. So surround myself with people that are smarter than me, that have gone through the things that I've done. Very similar to Cody Sanchez, like rip and duplicate it. There's no sense spending time doing and reinventing something that's already been done by somebody else. So I want the quickest path to a decision. And then if that decision's wrong, I'm going to pivot before somebody else even makes the right decision. So I'm all about do it, figure it out, pivot, do it, figure it out, pivot. And that's kind of in this knowledge bank that you don't get in education. Like you just can't get the world experience. And this is the flip side of it. A lot of people that don't have degrees will say, oh, you don't need to go to college. This is the thing. I've got 2 undergrad degrees. I've got a master's degree. Like, I did that route. And now I'm looking at the other part of my life saying, yeah, that kind of prepared me in a way, but it's more about decision making, systems process, having the right team, and being around the right group of people.
Yeah, I found, speaking to a lot of people, they struggle with the vision. So even that like foundation thing you're talking about, even like people that I'm really close to that are relatively motivated and moving forward, for some reason, like I can see it written in you. Like you literally started just getting the glistens of tears as you're talking about that. It's a thing that you can tell that you really, really genuinely want your great grandkids to know who you are and to be positively impacted by you. So have you ever met somebody who knew their great grandpa? Like, is that something in your family?
No, it's not. And that's the reason why that is my vision. Because I knew my grandparents, I knew my grandpa, I knew of my great grandfather. But I guess it all started, this came from the age of 15. In Eastern Kentucky, my grandfather died when I was 17. So at the age of 15, I walk into one of his rooms in his house, and he was fought in World War II, veteran. He never talked about the war, not at all. I walked in and I saw in the closet he had a Nazi knife hanging up. And my immediate reaction at the age of 15 is, what's he doing with, like...
Right, Nazi memorabilia?
Yeah, what's this thing?
Yeah.
I took that, and I went in the living room, I said, Grandpa, what is this? And he told me a little bit of the story, and they said, son, that's why you're here. I had to kill somebody in order to come home. That's why you're here.
Oh my gosh, man, that's so heavy. So,
but that's what led me to create that vision, because I had this thing I felt obligated.
Right. Right.
It's inside me. I don't know why. I mean, I kind of have an idea of why it's there, but it's because of him.
Yeah.
But he taught me so much. He did so much for me. I got to carry it forward.
You know what's so interesting is that can be anyone's vision. And even if they don't truly feel it, but when they're making decisions, they just thought, is this going to be a ripple that's felt 3 generations from now? Think about what that would change about the way we're doing things. Like even me, like just again, sitting across from you and like feeling the passion. I don't know if it's going to translate in the video or in the voices or not, but like, yeah, it's like I said before, it's like written in the fabric of your being. So my wife, her family has a legacy that's similar to what you're wanting to talk about, or what you're wanting to create for your family.
Yeah.
And they talk about her relatives almost as if they're still there. So it's really interesting because they've created so much, and they've like, I mean, so deeply impacted the town that she's from. It's unavoidable. So they talk about great grandpa.
Wow.
In a manner that you would think he was still there and he was still alive. It's really interesting. And it's like I said, it's unavoidable. So it's definitely had an impact on me, and thinking about like the way they did that was by creating stuff that was passed down, but the stuff was basically like a vessel or a conduit for life experiences. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just like, hey, I gave you some sort of, I don't know, pick an inanimate object that you couldn't really use. This kind of stuff was stuff that they could use and enjoy, and were conduits of fun and entertainment and memories for like thousands of people.
Wow.
So that kind of has informed a bit of some vision tweaks on my end as well. But again, I think that overall, the world would be a significantly better place if everybody just thought, what type of ripples am I leaving 3 generations from now? But truly, as they were going through life, thought about it. Like, how many people would stay at a desk job? Like, you might strategically do it for a while, but what's going to happen in your life if you're sitting at that desk, or what are you creating an impact that's outside of that? Can you still work the desk job and create those ripples in other ways? I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously we think about it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You know, we thought about it buying the land out in Colorado. That was, I think, a thing for both of us. We're thinking, let's build something there that's going to be permanent and legacy.
Yeah.
That as land continues to disappear over time, our families will have a place to go, pop from, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, in today's society, Brandon, a lot of people, it's the short-term game. What can I get now? What can I do now? What can I have now? Those types of things. And I'm in a group called Go Abundance of like-minded guys. You know, it's about health, generosity. Things are really important. There's a financial component there, but a lot of the things that we talk about are around the family, around the legacy. And one of the things that came up in one of the last conferences is that in today's society, a lot of people are trying to chase happiness. They're trying to be happy. But instead of chasing happiness, you need really to focus on a life of fulfillment and a life of helping others. And that is the true meaning of like the internal gratitude and what we're supposed to be as human beings, right?
So go into that a little bit more, because I watched a Hormozy video where he talked about that as well, where he basically said, in essence, I don't believe that happiness is the highest and best, like personal happiness is the highest and best goal to attempt to achieve for yourself. So can you explain the difference a little bit between like happiness and fulfillment?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a better definition than what I'm going to say, but happiness is inward facing. Happiness is a state of mind that you're in at a current moment in time. Fulfillment comes when the focus is not internally, but externally. It's on other people, seeing other people be happy, influencing their day-to-day lives, making an impact for them. And that's really where, you know, the legacy component or the meaning of just how we're supposed to be as human beings. We're supposed to expand, not stay the same and not contract. So for, you know, those around us, we've got to make a better impact than us just trying to be internally happy. And happiness can be found through fulfillment. That's the other key.
Exactly.
Like you can find happiness when you're on the quest to hit fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right?
It's this roundabout way that all of a sudden you find yourself in probably a much more contented place. And I feel like happiness is something that can be kind of fleeting. And like you said, it can be a bit of a selfish thing. But if you're seeking to help other people, or you're seeking outward focus, again, the generational ripples and even the ripples that are in our current time, where we're dealing with people that are directly around us. Like, you came over today because I couldn't get my internet figured out, and you brought lunch. Like, you may not know it, but that doesn't happen very much. Like for us, like I can't tell you how many people have brought us lunch. It's not very many. And it's because I'm very capable. So I think that there's probably a lot of people that are like, they've got it handled. But it means a lot to me that you would bring me lunch. The very simple, stupid thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate, you know, us being in each other's lives. Like, that brings me fulfillment, man.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you're fulfilled or when you're helping somebody else be fulfilled, it's like a reciprocity thing. It happens without even trying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Such a big deal. So I know that we're kind of talking about some like big picture stuff, But I do think it's something that if anyone is struggling with vision and personal, basically like an overall just, hey, here's the long goal. If you literally think to yourself, how are these decisions going to affect 3 generations from now? It will literally transform your thinking. And that, I think that can become a vision that's actually written on your soul. Like, I think that thing over time, you're just basically washing that thought across your brain so many times, it creates those ruts, which then creates the passion that I'm seeing in you. So I think, all right, what I want to do is shift a little bit, because one thing that I find really interesting about you is, again, going back to the timeline, and I want to talk about the decision-making process that you have gone through so quickly, because I feel like that's something that I've struggled with, is when we get into a position where we're like, this is fine. Like, fine is a place of existence for me in business that I tend to get comfortable in and just exist in fine. And I hate it, because over time it just like creates this like greasy, grimy feeling that's just like this gross buildup. But I don't see that in you as much. And I want to know what the thought process is, and if it's deliberate, and if you have like a place or a time where you're actually strategically thinking this stuff, or is it like, no, you're just standing in the shower and you're like, you know what, it's time to pivot away from the property management company. Like, this is like, so talking about the property management company, the pivot where you decided you're going to start it, and then the pivot away from it. And again, I want to stay on kind of the like the thought process portion of it more than the brass tacks of it.
Yeah, makes sense. So the start of the property management company came from a necessity. So we had one of my partners and I had 12, 13 properties, and we saw a downward trend in our cash flow. We had an external property manager, saw a downward trend in our cash flow. And then here again, I don't like just settling. I like to start asking questions. So, hey, what's going on? What do you think about? Like, what should we do?
So that was the first step, though, is just you saw a negative change, and you didn't just accept it. Like, you were willing to say, hey, and ask some questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Continue.
Yeah. And this is just a side note. So, I'm not a big like guru on, I love systems and process, but I'm not like, oh, here's a 5-step way to do X, Y, Z. But there is something that really guides like my day-to-day decision making, and that's knowledge, data, and action. What's the knowledge you need to figure out wherever you're at? What's the data say behind that? And then what are the actions that you're going to take to make things better, right? So for this piece in particular, knowledge, I had a general knowledge of what the property should be performing at. Now me going and asking the property manager, hey, what's going on? I'm trying to collect data, right?
Okay,
so I'm trying to get an understanding of, I know what should be happening. Now I know what's happening, what needs to change in order to influence that thing that's happening. So long story short, she basically said that this one tenant hadn't paid rent, blah, blah, blah. And then another tenant hadn't been paying rent. So I don't like just being told an answer I don't believe. So we drove in the car, 2 hours there, knock on the tenant's door, me and my partner, Miss Greta Ray, won't say her last name, but hey, why aren't you paying your rent? Like, we bought the property, you had these maintenance issues. We 100% took care of what was going on with the house. You got to pay your rent. Don't you ever tell me that I'm not paying my rent. Here's my receipt, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, wow. I felt really bad. I felt like I'd made a judgment call on her not paying her rent, where that wasn't the issue at all. The property manager was holding the funds, stealing from us. And so then we drove to her office. Hey, long story short, went in the back room. Oh, they have the checks. Yeah, it's going to get deposited. Mistake. No mistake. You've been stealing rent for 3 months. You're going to turn over the keys right now, and you're going to hear from our attorney. Like, it was just a black and white thing. You can't steal,
This is the thing. That's intimidating, because a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to go, first of all, driving all the way from Nashville to Chattanooga, 2-hour commitment, and knowing the entire time you're going to go knock on somebody's door is intimidating and scary. and then being willing to confront the property management company when you had new data of Miss Greta Ray saying, hey, I paid my rent, here's my receipts. And then, so what I'm wondering is, like, we've talked about the Enneagram before, and you and I are both on the very aggressive side of the Enneagram. What I'm wondering is, if you weren't on the aggressive side, how much is that going to hinder you in like this decision-making process and being able to just almost unemotionally chew through information and then react, not without fear, but almost a little bit without fear? Because you literally talked about 3 things, like the drive from Nashville to Chattanooga with knowing that you're going to have a confrontation, the confrontation with the renter, and then the confrontation with the property management company. That's a lot. That's a lot for people.
Yeah. So here's, and this is not the right or wrong answer. This is the Josh answer. If I don't take action, if I don't do that, Brandon, I'm going to be sitting at home trying to go to sleep at night, thinking about that situation day after day after day. And my vision, the stuff I need to accomplish, is so big. And that's not from an ego standpoint. That's just me saying, this is a big mountain I got to climb. I'm not going to let small rocks right now like stop me from getting up the mountain. So, it was probably that night before I played it out in my mind. Here's all the scenarios that could happen. I'm going to take action. So,
the other thing is, what does delaying buy you? Like what does like delaying? So seeking more data, we need more time. But the reality was you didn't need more time. It was an appropriate amount of data to then create action.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, I see that in with Jocelyn, my wife. Like, I think that she will wait a whole lot longer than I will in order to finally make some certain decisions that were always inevitable. So acting on the inevitability as soon as you know it's inevitable, I think is a really good, like that's what you did. As soon as you realized this is inevitable, you said, we will create action around this.
Yeah, you can. There's only 2 paths, right? You're either going to sit and stew about it and think about what you should do, or you're going to do it, right? And what is the best use of your time? And time is more important than money. Time is more important than anything to me, because that's something I can't get back. So I think I realized that in my corporate career and at that junction in 2015.
Okay.
So that's probably the perspective and the shift in my life that's provided me the opportunity to make those decisions. But for anybody that's listening, if you have a goal, if there's something you want to achieve, if there's a family you got to support, if there's something you got to do it. Like, don't wait. Don't sit and think about it. If you think about something more than 3 times and you're not taking action on it, then it's your own fault, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to pick it up and you've got to do something about it. And the worst case scenario there is you find more data, and then you ask more questions, and you keep refining like the decision-making process until you peel that onion back so far, you know exactly what the root cause is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So, I mean, I think that one example kind of tells me how you're able to make so many decisions so quickly and then create action based on those decisions. So let's go back a little bit more on real estate specifically. How did you decide that real estate was going to be the vehicle that you chose to create legacy? And then right now what you're doing is you're shifting, probably at the Cody Sanchez has leaked into your body through abundance. Oh yeah, she's amazing. But how did you decide that real estate was going to be the thing, and now what the pivot basically to business? I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so as I was in college, I read Robert Kiyosaki. It's not something I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Not something I read early in life, but in college I found that book. I'd met some others along the way. So we had accidentally became a landlord pre-2015 when my wife and I got married. She had a townhouse. We turned that into a rental. And then as part of our kind of planning at that pivot in my corporate career, we said, oh, we've got this thing over here on the side. We got this little townhouse. Wow, it's $1,200 a month. The payment's $600 a month, maybe $150 a month in expenses. We're putting $450 in the month. Mm-hmm. in the bank every month. Like,
what if we
that
just did this a bunch of times? Yeah.
I am what works good. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Yep.
And early on in real estate, I did make some mistakes on trying to do the home runs. And, you can go big or go home, but I'd much rather step up to bat and hit a single every single time.
So define home run and then define single.
So a home run would be, a big project or something that has the risk meter is over the middle. It's towards the red line, right? Something where you're putting more eggs in the basket than you should. My father-in-law is a cattle farmer, and he says, don't overload your wagon.
Okay.
So that's kind of a basic thing of don't put more on the wagon than what you can carry, right? And a lot of times, especially in real estate, people are trying to just let's put all this energy, all this time, all this into this one deal. It's going to be a home run. Then the bank calls the note, or the market shifts, or the product, inventory goes up, or something bad general contractor. Or if you're in Nashville, you got to deal with certain departments in Nashville that then start paying ransom fees and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a lot of uncontrollables, right? So in my mind, a base hit is something where you have more of those controllables at your fingertips versus non-controllables. So a home run might be, a $300,000 house, fix and flip, put 50 in it, sell for 500. Like, there's a tolerance there of 10 to 20%. If something happens, you can absorb that. Typically, in a home run, you can't absorb it. You're trying to maximize. You're trying to get swing for the fences, right?
What I see when when you say home run, what I envision are people that they'll start out with a couple of like lower dollar stuff, whatever. They'll get checks for $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. And then they go, I got this under control. And they'll go to Green Hills, which is a super nice area in Nashville. And they'll pay $1.1 million for a house. And then they'll go do a $50,000 rehab. And then they'll list the house for sale for 1.4 or 1.5 and realize that they didn't do a good enough job on the rehab and the house wasn't worth what they thought. And their holding costs are huge. Mm-hmm. So they still may end up netting out positive. Maybe they'll still make 15 grand, 20 grand. And I've seen different variations of this, but you've created this giant alligator with those holding costs every month that are just coming toward you. So when I think of home run, that's kind of what I think about is just like much higher dollar houses or they just have huge rehabs, gut to the studs rehabs that a lot of people, until you get a ton of houses under your belt, it's really difficult to do those and be good at budgeting on them.
Yeah. So another, analogy would be instead of trying to sell the whole box of bubble gum from Sam's Club,
yes,
I want to sell small Jolly Ranchers all day long.
Okay,
right?
That's a great callback. Yes, yes. I love it. Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, so how did you decide because you were very successful, you built a big portfolio of homes, like more homes than most people will ever own in their entire lives, even more homes than real estate investors typically have. Why are you deciding now to pivot over to business?
Yeah, I think it's, I did like Monopoly as a kid. I like the game Risk too. I try not to take a lot of risk now, but I'm always trying to move the puzzle pieces around.
Okay.
And we started some of the blue collar service stuff about a year ago, and it was primarily because of trying to diversify. So I'm in a spot in life. I'm going to turn 43, try to live modestly, try to have as much good experiences for me and my family as we can. I don't drive a fancy car, don't try to be flashy. I'm in it for the long game. I think that's maybe one of the things that vision. You got to have the vision. Are you trying to get rich quick? Or are you trying to get rich slow? I'm in the long game. I'm thinking about decades. I'm thinking about 20 years from now instead of this year, next year.
But the weird thing is you did get rich quick. No, I'm not joking, but you did it in a way that it's not sitting in your 10,000 square foot house that you still have a huge payment on and your 6 cars in the garage. Like it's sitting in It's sitting in tangible assets that are durable across time, which fits your vision. But
Yeah.
you did it fast. It doesn't matter. I'm just pointing out that like you're not getting rich slowly. You got rich very quickly, and then you're going to get more rich.
So I'll put it on the back to the vision piece, Brandon.
Yeah.
If you this is it's so basic. It really is. This is so simple, but it's so complex a vision, right? And so many people want to put that off. They wrestle with it. They might see it or think about it, in the back of their mind. But if you have a vision that is so clear that you can sit across the table and tell somebody like, I want my great, great, great grandchildren to know my name.
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity. I know what I got to do. So every day I'm not thinking, should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do this? I know what I got to do. I wake up with energy and passion. I know exactly what my day is going to look like in terms of the effort and the things I'm going to do. There's going to be bumps along the road, but
of course.
That's the energy. That's the nuclear that's behind like the speed. And you put that with the ability to just say, here's a decision. Let me make a decision. And in the corporate world, I was so fearful. I was taught for those 12 years of working to not make a bad decision. It took a couple years for me to get to like the mindset that I'm at. You make a bad decision in corporate world, like you're going to get ridiculed. Right. People are going, oh, you're a dummy, like all of these things. But if you remove that from the equation and you just allow yourself to have the freedom to make small decisions that can be adjusted along the way, then you can get to the right path. You can get to the right answer. I don't make a lot of big decisions. It really is like small things, and it's just kind of moving that puzzle piece around to make it fit the bigger thing.
See, I also wonder if, like, I hear a lot of people that are like, I don't like this. I don't like to do this thing. But you're doing multiple businesses. You're doing real estate. You're doing the blue collar stuff like, roofing, HVAC, plumbing. Like you're doing stuff that generally people would probably be like, I'm not really interested in that. But I think that your vision also informs your ability to find fulfillment in those businesses that aren't necessarily like crazy, sexy businesses. Because that's interesting. I'm kind of making that connection now as well. Like my great grandkids, I want them to know my name. That's the fulfillment that I'm seeking. So I'm willing to deal with literal shit on a plumbing business and figuring out other people that are going to be involved with that in order to get to that goal. Like the tenacity with which you're, interesting.
It's a higher purpose.
Yeah.
There's a higher calling.
Wow.
And Steve Fontaine, big runner.
Yep.
He said, quote that sticks with me a lot. To do anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. Like I wake up every day thinking about that.
That's some shame. That heaps some shame on me right there.
No, but that's it, right? Like
that's great.
Where we've evolved as human beings. Look at this. Like we are the prime species on planet Earth. That wasn't just from like everybody being on social media and doing what they feel like doing, right? And I do have privilege. And the privilege is I have a perspective of a grandfather that was in the trenches of World War II.
Yeah,
so
wow.
Whenever I'm like having a bad day or I'm having to like eat shit, like my grandpa was fighting the Nazis. My day is not that bad.
That's the clip that's going to go with this podcast right here. So I wonder if your grandpa knew in that moment how pivotal. I think about that because I've got a 5.5-month-old son sitting 100 yards away from us in the house. And I wonder what pivotal moment is going to create a path that basically is like, oh, this is my forever path. And it was on something that was so potentially small from your grandpa. Like, I know that he probably felt like, man, I didn't want to tell him that story, or I hope I told him that story okay. But that literally created a divergence in your entire existence.
Yeah.
That is so profound and crazy.
And I didn't realize it until I was in my late 20s, early 30s, Brandon. So it finally clicked like one day. I'm like, that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, Yeah. So from the business standpoint, if you have a big enough vision, if you know what you want to do, like speed is just a variable inside there, right? So we've accomplished a lot just because we not necessarily, we know exactly what we want to do, but we also know what we don't want to do on the business side. So if we're in a daily decision making thing and we say, this is what we got to decide, a lot of times we'll say, does it detract, or, is it something that's going to add to that goal? And then it's an easier decision at that point. I try to be very objective in some of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. So how much of it do you think, I had lunch with a young guy who basically just didn't know, like if you're looking at options, it's very clear to me which option he should go with. But because he's never done any of those options, it was like, I don't really know which one is better than any of the other ones. So how much do you think, like if somebody's new, how do they decide? Like how do they pick if you've got 3 options in front of you that are, you can't really decipher the difference? Are you talking to other people and asking them, like people you respect? Like what method would you use to make those decisions?
Yeah, it's probably different when I was younger, and I'm kind of looking at, I'll answer that question, but give context first. I'm looking at life now. This has kind of been a reflection point over the last few weeks for me. I'm looking at kind of decades of my life. So in my 20s, I formed and kind of scaled my corporate career. In my 30s, I moved into the entrepreneurial type portion of my life, scaling and starting businesses. And now in my 40s, I'm looking at guys that are ahead of me in terms of where I want to be, what I want to do. And it's all relationships. Like, so I'm counting, my 40s as a relational. So having these types of conversations, being around like-minded guys that have similar visions, similar goals, similar attitudes and habits. If you don't know what you want to do in life, get around some people that do know what you want to do.
Oh, it feels so different when you're in a room of people that are motivated and that are driven and have focus and know what they're doing. That room feels so different than going to a room with a bunch of people that are just like, yeah, we've got 7 nights a week. We're doing travel ball for the kids, and we're going, like, there's not that there's anything wrong with that if that is the thing that fits your vision. Yeah. But if there's just a bunch of people that accidentally got pulled into a bunch of different things in life, which it's very easy to do, it is a completely different feel than being surrounded by people that are just on the path, like on the path that they have decided to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you maybe a more granular approach than vision. So I think if you don't have a vision for your life, if you don't have that kind of thing that you can spit out and feel passionate about and just say it in your sleep, think about where some of your core values. So, journal, go to your spot where you can kind of be away from the phone, away from the social media, away from distraction, go to your meditative spot, take a journal. What are 3 to 5 core values? What are things that are important to you? Is it time? Is it adventure? Is it, relationships? Is it providing for your family? Identify those 3 to 5 core values, and then that's going to help you form your vision. And if you really want to take it a step further, this is something we do in GoBundance at all the conferences. It's called the Empire Expander exercise. So think about a grid. Have in the top columns all of your core values. And on the right-hand side, list the 5 people you're around the most.
Ooh.
You ready for this?
Ooh.
Now, for each one, give them a plus or a minus. Are they adding or are they detracting from your core values?
Ooh. That's a wake-up call for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even if it's just on accident. Like, they just ended up hanging out with that group of friends from junior high or high school that ended up in a certain place. And then you write those names down and you go, oh, no. That's interesting. That's a scary exercise to do, honestly, because I think there's a lot of people that could probably just they could just like think about it real quick and go, I don't want to do that exercise. Like that's a scary
It's
one.
tough. And I'll be vulnerable with you, Brandon. Like I did that 2 weeks ago, and there was these people that we used to hang out with, another couple that was older than us. We're not hanging out with them anymore.
It was just a decision, and it's not like you're not telling them, I assume.
Nope.
You're just going to let that relationship kind of dwindle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow.
And it's not that we love them.
Of course.
We care about them.
Yeah.
Like they are a key part of our life. But I don't want to go over and talk politics. I don't want to go over and talk about the game. I want to get real. I want to talk about the things that are life impacting. Like what's really in their relationship. What are the struggles? What are the things that they're going through? Like, let's be honest. Let's be vulnerable with each other.
Yeah.
And if you can have those types of authentic relationships with the people you hang out with the people you work with the people that you want to be around, that's the real like DNA. That's a connection that's going to allow you to then really latch on to your core values. And if you have some core values, now you can create a really strong vision.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And very scary. I mean, it is like, think about it. There, like I said, I think there's a lot of people out there who, I mean, even in my life, like there's definitely relationships that I have let kind of dwindle because the same reasons that you're talking about, like just the same conversations over and over again and the same memories that we're talking about that were cool when we did them back in the day. But we have such a limited amount of time on the planet. And especially now with a kid for me, which has been the big change, I have even less time. So the amount of people that I want to spend that time with has gotten even smaller. The amount of things that I want to be doing with my time. Like when I find myself doing something that I instantly am like, this is so stupid. Like I hate what I'm doing right now. And I hate it because I could be spending this time with my son or doing one of these other 5 or 6 things that are so much more vital to reaching the goal of how are my grandkids, great grandkids going to remember my name?
Yeah.
I love it.
If you want to take one step further,
this
is like bonus content,
sure.
Right?
Yeah. Take us in.
Write your eulogy.
Write your eulogy.
Who do you want to be at your funeral?
Oof.
Have that list of people. Write it down. Make a video about it. Like, that gives you real clarity on who you really want to spend your time with.
So imagine setting your cell phone up and writing a video that acting like you know that you're going to pass.
Yeah.
And thanking everyone who's at your funeral and thinking about how you impacted their life and make the video. And I wonder how many people literally that video is 30 seconds long, 45 seconds long.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, oof. Dude, this is some deep stuff. I thought we were going to talk about real estate and business, and I feel like we really, I mean, we're talking about like some philosophy stuff, but this is the stuff that literally carries you, like we talked about, just carries you through so many difficult times, but carries you in a way that there's still so much emotional stability and like strength and power that you find in this. It's motivating and inspiring. That's how I feel every time we hang out, by the way. Like, we've gone on multiple trips together, and every time I get around you, you're a very like calm spirit. Like, you're a very just kind of calm, chill guy. But when we start talking about this stuff, there's this freaking like lion inside that just starts waking up. It's really, it's like I said, it's inspiring. It's very cool.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate your friendship, man. And, I think that's another part of, just relationships in general. Like I had some business ideas and I threw them out at you the other day. I want to get feedback. I'm always like, we all have blind spots, right? And we all have friends and people around us that have done certain things that you want to do or have experienced certain things that you don't necessarily need to experience.
Right.
So it's a feedback loop, right? And that's what life is about. So I think a lot of people in today's society, they're afraid to be vulnerable with each other. Yeah. They want to put on this facade of, oh, look at me. Here's what I'm doing. I've done this. Be real.
But that's like true networking as well. So like I hear that a lot. Hey, I'm going to a networking event. And if you go to the networking event and the goal is to basically like show off a bit of a flex, like here's what I'm doing, and you're not really talking about the issues that you're having, or you're not really asking other people what they're up to and digging in and digging deeper so that you could potentially help them. I feel like you're also just hurting, like just at a very basic level. That's how you create business relationships with other people, is by allowing them to solve your problems and you solve their problems. But that means you have to tell people what your problems are.
Yeah.
So if you literally have a spiel when you show up, like the guy that I went to lunch the other day, Matt, I said, go to RIN, and when you talk to people, tell them I have never done a real estate deal before, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
And talk to them. And if they're in the same boat that you're in, remember their name, thank them for their time, head off to the next person and find somebody who you can network with who you can actually be a benefit to, or find somebody who can be a benefit to you rather than just like, hey, I went to a network event. And you're like, what did you do? I met Chad and Mark, and now more people will recognize my face, which is completely useless.
Yeah.
Maybe over time it would help, but like being a little bit more intentional in the way you're going to go, quote, network with people.
Yeah, I'd also say like an add to that, Brandon, is don't be afraid to add value in somebody else's life without a receipt.
Yeah.
You know, you might be the best at bookkeeping, for example, right? And if you're a networking event and you hear somebody that's, you know, dealing with some bookkeeping issues, help them out. Tell them, hey, here's have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And don't ask for anything in return.
That's a really hard thing for people, especially when they're new. Because I think there's been this push in our culture, especially like on the design side, artists and, you know, video editors, those kinds of people. I feel like they think that they've been taken advantage of for so long that when they see an opportunity that they could go create value for somebody and it would take them like 20 minutes to do something amazing for that person maybe doesn't even know that they need. Like you just see whatever, like you see somebody's logo for their company and you're like, I could do that so much better. And you just go shoot them a logo real quick and be like, hey, I loved your company name and I was inspired by this. And you just go do that real quick. Even if they don't use it because their wife designed their logo and she'd be mad if they did, whatever. What did you just do? Like you just did something that in 20 minutes showed a skill and also showed that you were listening and showed that you cared enough that you were willing to take a little bit of time to go do it. That's more great advice. Yeah. I think that, all right. So let's go back over into real quick. I just let's talk about some of the businesses that you're starting right now. And I want to hear a little bit more about, like, kind of go through each of the businesses, where you ultimately feel like this is going to go. And then I want to talk about how your partnerships work a little bit, like get into the actual minutia of how are you picking partners to go do business with. But tell me about the businesses first.
Yeah. So I've got my life vision, which we talked about, and I also have a business vision. And I'm on the quest on the business side to change the blue collar industry. I listened to a lot about, you know, micro, dirty jobs, the shortage of the trades. And I was a white collar guy for like 12 years, you know. So I see the opportunity and I see the potential for younger people to get into this industry and really outperform without a lot of debt. And then I also see the opportunity from homeowners, from people who need these services. It's very typical to have a homeowner call 4 or 5 HVAC companies, and maybe 1 or 2 of them answer the phone, and then maybe one of them, if they're lucky, actually shows up for the appointment.
That's
right?
I mean, as a contractor, that's exactly what we see.
Yeah. So if you see the opportunity to help other people get involved, you see the opportunity from the business side, the demand is there. I've already got a team. I already have systems process from the construction side. We can pivot slightly and get into that. It diversifies our revenue, help us expand, attract, retain more talent. I want to build a big team, you know, and with the right team, you can do anything you want.
But what you're talking about is, and one of the kind of the linchpin of this whole thing was you created a system for a different business that works. Mm-hmm. And then you said, I have created this. I know that I can tweak this and sit down in a strategy meeting and most likely probably nail it 95% of the way. Now there's going to be 5% unknowns, whatever the unknowns are, even in certain markets, just questions that are pending that we know we're going to probably have to answer. But you've created the system and then shifting it over to these other businesses, which took the experience of your 20s and 30s to get you to that point. So you were able to basically cut out all of the BS of unknowns and hiring the wrong types of people. And you're basically able to distill it down because you've been experimenting for the last 20 years that now Josh in his 40s is ready for action, basically.
Yeah. So, and I have some really good mentors and some people in my life that have achieved their vision, and I see the fulfillment, I see the time and the things that they can accomplish now. And the data piece there, right? So knowledge, data, action, the data piece of some of these guys, it's a hockey stick. So they've gone down this long road of putting in the time, the effort, the education, the learning, the experiences, and then all of a sudden it goes like this, right?
That makes sense.
And I think that's where maybe a lot of people want it too quickly, or aren't willing to put in the time for gaining that piece of the recipe that's needed to be the cook.
I think a lot of people that were just concerned that they're doing the wrong thing. Like they're on that relatively flat part of the hockey stick. And what they're worried about is, I'm going to do this for 10 more years or 15 more years. And it's just going to be this like little bitty, tiny incremental growth. And I'm not going to see that hockey stick. So I can see impatience as well. I can see both sides of it. But that's another thing that I wonder about. Like, how do you overcome? We could tangent on that, but I don't want to. I'm sorry. Pull it back to what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the demand side of the equation here, it's very evident. And Micro had the statistic late last year, for every 5 people that were retiring in the trades industry, plumbing, HVAC, roof, electricity, they're only being replaced by 2 people. Mm-hmm. So there's such a huge influx of people that are getting ready to exit that workforce, combined with a lot of significant amount of people that don't want to enter that workforce. Ugh. So think about the value proposition if you can nail that. And I'm not much of a risk taker. I'm a calculated risk taker. So I'm predicting within the next 3 to 4 years, there's going to be this significant value proposition in the blue collar trades. And that's what I'm preparing for, Brandon. We're going to have a headquarter team that can service the sales, the marketing, that can do the recruiting, the HR piece, the finance, the accounting piece. So from a higher level kind of parent company standpoint, if you've got the bench strength to handle all of the stuff at the headquarter team, all of the smaller stuff, it's just moving the knobs in a little different way, right? So that's kind of the route that we're taking. The other piece of it, which from the financial standpoint, a lot of businesses between $1 and $3 million, they stay at that spot. And a lot of those owners stay owner-operators in those businesses. It really takes you to get above 5 million. 10 million is really the kind of breaking point there for you to get out of the day-to-day, like transactional owner-operator seat.
Right. So like an HVAC guy who he's going to maybe have a couple of guys with him, and then he's got his truck, and then maybe he's able to start one more team. But he's still working day to day. He's going and making sure that everything's not falling apart. And a lot of it has to do with integrity, because guys that can do that for a long time, they don't want to get too big because they're worried they're going to lose control and their quality is going to go down. Their reputation is going to be bad. But that binds them typically to exactly what you're talking about, $1 million to $3 million max for that kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you Robert Kiyosaki, mentions in one of his books that 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 5-10 years, whatever it may be. So that's why he started 10 businesses. So I'm kind of in that same realm of philosophy, right? So if we start 10 blue collar businesses, one of them's at least going to be successful.
Come on, I know you don't believe that.
No,
for a second.
that's jokingly, but I do think about it in terms of the revenue size.
Yeah.
So if you have, let's just say you've got 5 similar businesses and they're 1 to 3 million in revenue. Well, now collectively you can be above that 10 million mark.
Right.
Now you can hire a CFO. Now you can have a controller. Now you can have a director of project management, director of sales, HR person, and you can really use leverage and scale on the talent front in order to move your business forward.
That's super smart, especially because plumbing, I would imagine that the workflow for a lot of this stuff is the same. A person has something break in their house. They have a need. They make a phone call or they get online, and then it goes to your corporate, and then you go, this is plumbing, this is HVAC, this is roofing, this is...
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
And the other piece that really is it's not a niche, but it is our secret sauce, and I'm very happy to give it. It's answer the phone, have a logoed polo, and show up 5 minutes before the appointment. If you do those 3 things, you will get the customer.
Josh,
Isn't that sad?
Listen, I need you to lower your standards a little bit, buddy. Answer the phone, logoed polo, show up 5 minutes beforehand to the appointment. That is kind of ridiculous. The fact that that will win you so much business, that means that the standards are so low right now.
Yeah.
But that makes me really happy that you're entering into the business, because I know how much you care about quality. And I know that like you also really care about the people that are going to be served by you guys. This isn't like we're going to fleece these people because I see a lot of opportunity. You're serving these people again, because 3 generations from now, you want your kids to know that you had a good reputation and that you weren't some terrible shystery dude that was taking advantage of people. Is shyster racist? I'm concerned that that's a
I
racist.
think it's okay.
Okay. All right, good. I don't intend it to be that way. We'll leave it in. All right. Give me some closing thoughts. Is there anything that you want to say? Is there
Did you want to talk about the partner thing?
Oh yeah. Let's dive into
that
that for a little bit.
So,
This is a big one actually. I don't want to wrap this up without so I'll cut that little part out where I kind of act like I'm going to end it, because the partnership thing is, I feel like, super important. You and I both have had partners in the past that we have not liked. Yeah. And then you and I both are in current partnerships or have partnerships that we do enjoy. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because this is another point of just being able to leverage somebody to the max. I feel like when you're in a partnership with things that really work well. So
So I've been in a lot of bad partnerships, Brandon, and just being frank about it, and it's not necessarily the person was bad. It was that the agreement on the front end was bad. So any partnership is like a marriage. You've got to set expectations. You've got to communicate. You've got to be willing to talk to each other. And that's just not, it's not just a weekly meeting, right? It's all relational. So you've got to be in the same sync, the same flow together. So from the bad partnerships I've been in, I've made some strict criteria going into any new partnership. So I'll give that context in terms of before I talk about the ones I'm in. So the first deciding factor of any partnership for me is, will they step in and take care of my family if something happens to me?
Okay. Big deal.
Number one, it's not about selling the company. It's not about equity. It's not about the financials. It's, are they going to step in and help my family?
Yeah.
Are they going to do what's right?
Because that speaks to integrity.
It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's huge. And then second piece is, let's be honest and let's be frank with personality types. Let's lay it out there. Is it the, Ryan Pineda uses the predictive index. You can do the Enneagram, but it's the yin and the yang piece. And you got to look at partnerships not as 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 5. So you always want to get in a partnership where the sum of the parts are greater than they are individually. And that's where the leverage can come in for both parties. And it needs to be a win-win scenario. The third piece is, you just got to have a tight operating agreement on the front end. Make sure all of the expectations are laid out. Who's going to do what, especially if you're in an owner-operator scenario. That's where, some of the partnerships I've been in that haven't worked, it's because we're actually doing some of the work ourselves versus hiring employees to do the work. So have that laid out 100%. If there's any scenario you can think of, throw it in there. It's not going to hurt, right?
This is another one that's really hard for people that are new, because the reason you're able to create basically a very comprehensive understanding of how to make a partnership work is because you've screwed them up and screwed them up and screwed them up, or had good relationships, good, that you're able to basically continue to just basically rise 30,000 foot view. You can look down and go, I have a full comprehensive understanding of how to start a business and run it. I have a full comprehensive understanding of how to do partnerships. So if you're new, my recommendation is, if you're going to do a partnership on a deal, do a partnership on a deal.
Yeah.
Don't become partners with somebody in a real estate venture or real estate company. Just do a partnership on that one deal. And then if it worked pretty well, then partner on the next deal, and then partner on the next deal. And if you really realize over a few years, as you guys have continued to grow, then maybe you talk about entering into like an actual long-term partnership. It's kind of like the dating relationship. I feel like I got really lucky with the two guys that I'm with to go from where we started with to where we are now. And it truly is almost a miracle that it's lasted and worked, because it's been not only an expansion and changing and willingness for all of us to make those changes as the business has changed, as the market has changed, as we've gone from doing a few deals to doing a lot of deals, to doing new construction instead of rehabs, to doing development. Like, our ability to basically continue to walk forward together and go to education events, go to mastermind events, like all of that has just kind of stayed consistent. And it would have been very easy at any point for somebody to just been like, I'm going to go hunt in Wyoming for 2 months and I don't want to do this anymore. That's me. I would have been the guy.
What's been the glue that's held you guys together?
Infinite grace for mistakes to a point. Mm-hmm. So I say infinite grace to a point where we really feel like, hey, I need you to step it up now, because, and then the person has, and it's not been a thing where we've just like kicked them and then they've bounced off kicked them, bounced off the bottom, kicked them. It's like, hey, I need you to get your shit together. And then they did. So like, one example, Jason got cancer. And so he had cancer for a while and he went into a really dark, like, depression, which makes total sense. And we gave him a lot of space and a lot of time. But when he had healed and we recognized that it was time for him to basically come back and be on the team, he was still in a pretty dark place. And we went to him and said, we need you. Like, we need you to come back. And that we thought there's a decent chance that we lose him. Not, like that he just basically says, I can't do a partnership anymore. But what we didn't recognize was, like, he needed to hear that from us. He needed to know, like, we're a three-legged stool, bro, and it's been two of us for a long time. And so he felt that responsibility, and he rose to the occasion, and he became a better person for it. Like, just his mental health became so much better. He recognized a lot of, like, personal power going through what he went through, and the discipline that he created in his own life going through cancer, and just like this deep, gritty understanding. So I wish I had more, like, concrete things that I could point to. The only thing that I can think is that we always stayed curious about new forms of education together. And so we would keep going to these events together. And then we also kept our lifestyles at a really similar level. So, like, as our lifestyles have expanded as far as how much money we're spending, how many vacations we're doing, it all seemed to kind of bloom about the same. I need to think about more, like...
It kind of sounds like you had similar core values.
That's true. That's definitely true. Like, there's always been times where, and I think about this going all the way back, like when we really needed money, when we were starting out, and a homeowner would call with a warranty issue or something like that, and we knew, like, oh, we have to take care of that. There was never a question from any of us that we were willing to sacrifice to go do that thing for that person.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's super valid. Like, I feel like, yeah, you've just done a much better job of just being like, hey, McDonald, you just talked for 5 minutes and didn't say
No, I wanted to know, man. That's good stuff.
No, but I think you're right that when you distill it all the way down, that those foundational core values are there for all of us. Like integrity. I'm never worried about any of us trying to do an outside deal or steal from us. I'm always feel like everybody wants to basically, I like the homeowner example, but I also feel like we're all willing to be like, yeah, no, like that person's trying to take advantage of this or whatever. We got to protect the team. So, but those are really, I feel like those gauges are really similar. The other thing we've done a good job is divvying up what seats we're supposed to be in and trying to stay in those lanes, because that creates a lot less, like the clashes that creates are a lot fewer, I feel like. But that comes with time, like understanding a business and understanding the way it operates. If you're brand new, and you're trying a partnership, you may not understand what seats there, basically what tasks need to be divvied up between the seats. But I would just say, if you don't, do it as quickly as possible so that you don't start hating that person. Because if you guys are constantly just like living in each other's spaces and each person is answering phone calls that like it should just be one of you or whatever, somebody's doing inspections on houses, it should be one of you. It's you're going to realize real quick that there's a Justin Timberlake and then there's the rest of the band. And that's not how it should be.
But you gave some really good advice, and that was kind of to enter partnerships into like these small incremental project pieces, right?
It's just a way to sample it. It's like it's dating before you get married.
Yeah.
But I think you're right.
Really
like going back to the core values and then long-term vision. But I'll say this, like Brandon and Jason have never really articulated a vision. Like we have vision pieces, and I think we have a general direction. But honestly, that's been fine. Like I'm going to go back to a word that I told you later becomes kind of this like greasy thing. It has been fine because we've been moving in the right direction. Have we been moving as quickly as we should? Probably not. Have we been moving as quickly as we are capable of? Definitely not. So I feel like if we were able to create a stronger vision that basically was pushed out so much further, it would pull us so much faster toward those goals.
Can I ask you a deep question?
Yeah, go for it.
And you can cut this if you want.
No, it's fine.
Do you feel like your partnership together, that you guys are at your potential or hitting fulfillment? You still feel like there's gas in the tank there?
I feel like there's definitely still gas in the tank. I feel like the shift that we've made from going from the building side of everything over into the larger development that we're working on in Madison has kind of renewed some vigor. And then the hard money lending stuff, by the way, if you need hard money loan, NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. I think that the changes have renewed some enjoyment and excitement out of us. But I will say, I think I see changes coming in the next 5 years probably, where I imagine that whole, we've been together, we've been working the same amount, we've been expanding lifestyle, the same different, I foresee in the next 5 years that becoming more of a divergence. So I think that the key, but I don't know that that's a problem. And here's why. It will motivate us more quickly to move to the owner's box of Nashville Money Guys and have people that are underneath us that are doing the work, rather than us being the ones that are in there doing it, which has always been the plan anyway. So if Jason, who's older than us, decides, I don't need what you guys want, I'm very fulfilled doing what I want to do, but I only want to work 5 hours a week, that I feel like becomes an acceptable proposition at that point in time. And so I think I can see that. I think I can see that coming.
Yeah.
Do I think that, like you sent me a document that was basically, hey, here's what I'm thinking as far as like my like businesses that I'm thinking about creating in the future. And I literally was like, this makes me nauseated. I don't want that much. I don't want that much. Yeah. I just don't want that much to manage. I'm not good enough at managing people and creating that thing that you're creating. And maybe I'm selling myself short. Maybe I should want that. But the idea of trying to create that, I feel like would create so much stress in my life that's going to take me away from things that I want to get on the tractor and I want to smoke a cigar and I want to go mow grass a little bit. Nice. And like the truth is, when we started Nashville Money Guys, one of the stipulations was we didn't want to work more than 20 hours a week on it. And I think that there's a part of the vision is how much free time do I have right now to like wake up next to my son in the morning in the bed and roll over and just hang out with him for an hour while he's waking up, because the morning is the best time. Yeah. And so I'm also open to that changing as he gets older, or if we have more kids, and like But for this season of my life, I feel like the business stuff, I want to create Nashville Money Guys and I want to grow it. And I'm excited about that like hockey stick feeling that I kind of know is coming.
Yeah.
Like we've been incrementally growing, but I know that the hockey stick will come. But I feel like the most important thing for me right now is, because of my age and your age, like going on our bear trip in June.
Heck yeah.
Those are the memories that, like, when I'm 70, am I going to be able to do that? Not the way we're about to do it. I'm not. So like, I want to do that in my 40s.
Yeah.
And I want to go do my Wyoming elk hunt in my 40s. And I want to go to Colorado to our land. And I want to go glass for mule deer for 10 hours. And I just want to, because I have my youth and my body to abuse now. And then I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But I also don't feel like I have the passion and vision clarity that you have. So, but I've still done some kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, but being around you, it's always done the same thing where I always go, man, I should do more stuff. I should be more like Josh. I should do more stuff. But then when you go away, I go, was I just inspired because Josh is an inspiring person to be around? And is that really what I want to do? And right now, in this moment, the answer is no. And I don't know how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a lot more potential in you, man. And you can still do all those fun things you talked about.
No, you're right, because you're doing all the same stuff I am. I mean, you have a young child, a young family right now. It's the same thing, and you're still, you're out there just. I mean,
the other piece is, and this is something I've over the last few years just found, because I've when I got out of the corporate career and it was the entrepreneurial type journey in my 30s, it was me like rolling up my sleeves and just figuring out and doing it. Now it's not about necessarily being the one that have to manage the people. It's finding the person that's better at it. It's going to the experts. It's being in that relational
who, not how
piece of who do I know that is way better than me at hiring people.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great. I think that's one thing I'm excited about with Nashville Money Guys is once we've kind of tested the foundation of all these systems, and we have been consulting with people who are running businesses like ours to just make sure that we've got our bases covered. And then we start turning the volume up, which is one of the reasons we started doing online content, is trying to turn the volume up, hiring people that are under us that are much more skilled at the certain tasks that we do. I feel like we'll still allow a lot of the freedom that I want and a lot of the fulfillment that comes from just feeling like you're running a well-oiled business.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So at the end of the hockey stick, when you guys are taking off the rocket to Mars, I want it to be known that I'd like a certificate for being one of the first 100 subscribers to Nashville Money Guys.
Done.
Signed.
Done. We'll send them out. I appreciate you subscribing. All right. Any closing thoughts here? This was great, by the way.
Cool.
Like, I feel like for me, we touched on some really difficult things for people to understand. Like talking about the vision stuff. It's hard for a lot of people to get on board and to figure that out. It's very intimidating because you have to be introspective. And a lot of people, when you sit and get introspective, it can be a dark, nasty place. So I feel like if you just potentially cut that out and you say, what will people 3 generations from now remember you as? Will they remember you?
Yeah.
How many people out here, like if you're listening, do you actually know any of your family members from that long ago that you didn't like learn about from 23andMe? Imagine. It's almost no one, because so few people make that type of impact that far down the line. Yeah. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from this is I can just steal your vision.
Go for it.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody can have that same exact vision.
Yeah.
And it will literally lead only to good things.
We'll be better human beings.
We will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It informs every decision that you make.
Yeah. It's living a life of fulfillment, Brandon.
Yeah. Love it.
I would say the closing remarks, just don't let stuff stop you. What's the knowledge you need? Especially in today's world, you can get whatever knowledge you need. You don't need a degree to find the knowledge. Get the data, make action. Don't think about things more than 3 times before taking action on it.
That's awesome. fantastic closing thoughts. People can find Josh in many of my hunting videos coming over the next few years on Brandon McDonald Archery. Thank you guys for watching and listening. This has been the Nashville Money Guys podcast.